Good morning, everyone. We will get started in just a minute or so. All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming today. We are super excited to be having this info session for you all for our Backing Small Businesses 2024 grant program. We have hit our maximum cap of attendees, so we will have a recording available for everyone who's attending now and also everybody who registered for the webinar, even if they were unable to get in. As some of you have noticed, everybody is muted, your cameras are off. So only the people who are presenting will be seen on the Zoom. There is also a recording happening, which will also record any publicly answered questions. You can use the Q&A portion down on the bottom menu of your Zoom to submit a question to us. And we have some folks with us here who are going to be helping out during our session today. So I will introduce myself, introduce our team, and then we will get started. We expect the informational portion of this webinar to take just under an hour or so, and then we will have the room available for the next hour as well to continue answering any questions that come up. So I will start off. My name is Amanda. I'm a member of the Main Street America team on our corporate grants program in strategic projects. I'm based in Chicago. We also have with me helping out with some of our Q&As, Liz Schenk, who is part of our communications team, Tia Weiss, and Hanamira Friedland, who are also part of our corporate grants program team. Also special on this call today, we have Magdalena Pedroso, who is one of our representatives from American Express, who is sponsoring this program. We're super excited to have her here today. Mags, if you would like to introduce yourself and say a few words.
Hi everyone. Apologies, Amanda. I can't turn on my video for some reason on the Zoom right now. But first and foremost, I'd like to echo Amanda's sentiments and thank you all for taking the time out of your busy schedules to join us today. As she said, my name is Magdalena Pedroso, and I'm a philanthropic program manager on American Express's Community Impact team. I lead our Backing Small initiative, which is all of the work that we do to support under-resourced and economically vulnerable communities. Together with our amazing partners at Main Street America, we're really excited to bring to you all this year's expanded cycle of our Backing Small Businesses program. We all have a deep passion for championing small businesses as we understand the impact you all have, not only within your local communities, but also on the national economy. And we stand strongly behind helping small businesses grow. I encourage you to ask questions and listen to the information that MSA presents to you today, review the eligibility criteria, and apply for this year's program. when you're looking at those applications, we really want to hear about how you're empowering your local communities, any challenges you've encountered in your journey as a small business owner, and plans for growing either your business or your subject matter expertise in your respective areas. We're really excited to have you all again here with us today, and congratulations on being here. And with that being said, Amanda, I'll turn it back over to you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. So I'm going to share a PowerPoint presentation. As I said, this portion will take about an hour or so. So let me share that now. Alrighty. So you all should be able to see my screen here. And you can continue answering or asking questions in that Q&A portion. Just keep in mind that some of the questions that you are asking might be answered later as part of the presentation. So just keep an eye out and we will get to those questions by the end of the session today. So on today's call, we've done our welcome and introductions. I'm going to introduce a little bit more about who Main Street America is and what work we do. And then we'll talk specifically about the Backing Small Businesses Grant Program. We're going to go into a deep dive into eligibility, who is eligible and what kinds of businesses they are, as well as the application, what kinds of questions you might expect, any details that you might need to prepare beforehand, key dates and timelines, and then also what makes a strong application. And then we will have time available after the session where our team will be here answering questions using the Q&A form. Those answers should go out publicly as well, so keep an eye on that box as well. Maybe the question that you're asking has already been asked and answered. So a little bit about Main Street America. So who are we? We are a subsidiary of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. We are committed to strengthening communities through preservation-based economic development in older and historic downtowns and neighborhood commercial districts. So what does that mean? Preservation for us, we do look at the actual physical preservation of physical structures and buildings, but we also look at preservation in kind of a more community manner. We want to make sure that we're preserving the culture and the vibe and the feel and the community that has been established in these areas. We don't just work in kind of your small town zones. We work in rural areas. We work in cities as well that have those kinds of commercial corridors where people tend to gather. We have a network of more than 1,600 grassroots organizations across the United States. And we do most of our work with what we call the Main Street approach, which is a framework where we look at different ways that we can take a practical, adaptable, and balanced approach to achieving economic health and quality of life outcomes. So here's a quick map of some of our programs throughout the continent of the US. We do also work in Alaska and Hawaii, as well as Puerto Rico and other US territories. You can see on the right-hand side some of the stats of some of the results that we've achieved over the past several years, including looking at new jobs, net gain in businesses, rehabilitating buildings, and leveraging volunteer hours. That Main Street approach that I mentioned has 4 main points that we look at when we're talking about transforming and preserving the communities that we work in. We want to look at that approach through economic vitality, so making sure that the area is economically stable and expanding. We look at design, placemaking, kind of the beauty aspect of a community, promotion. How do people promote their communities and make sure that they're gaining attraction from tourists or people from out of town so that they can continue to grow. And then organization, kind of some of that behind the scenes look at how they make sure that their communities are organized, that they're getting all the information out about different events and things happening in their communities. But for this particular grant program, it falls mainly under that economic vitality, because we know that a town or a city commercial district can't be viable unless it's got different small businesses who are working in it. So that's where this grant program fits in. So what is the Backing Small Businesses Grant Program? Launched in 2021 to help under-resourced and economically vulnerable small business owners recover from the COVID-19 pandemic and grow their businesses. In the first year, we awarded $1.65 million. In our second year, we expanded and we awarded $2.3 million. And these were to small business owners across the United States and territories. This year, we're once again expanding, and we are going to be awarding $5.75 million to under-resourced and economically vulnerable small business owners to help build their economic vitality and foster a thriving community. How that breaks down, we have our primary grant, which is the info session that you all are here for. So that initial grant is going to have a 5,000 application maximum. So we will only be accepting 5,000 applications, and then the application will close. From there, we will select 500 recipients. Each recipient will receive $10,000 to use for their small businesses. Later in the year, out of those 500 recipients, when they submit their final grant paperwork, they will also be able to apply for an enhancement grant. So from those 500, 25 will receive an additional $30,000 to continue spending towards their business. So who is eligible to apply and to receive these grant funds? We've got a lot of different eligibility requirements. You can find these listed on our website as well. You must be the owner of the business who's applying. So we want to make sure that we have the actual owner filling out the form. We do have some ability for people who need assistance filling out the form. I'll talk about that option a little bit later. The applicant must be at least 18 years or older. The business must be an independent business and not part of a franchise. The business must employ less than 20 full-time employees, and we'll talk a little bit about that calculation later in the presentation. The business must be in good standing in the state in which it was formed and the state in which it does business. Again, we'll talk about this in detail a little bit later. For most of you, the state where your business was formed and the state where you do business is the same, but for some of you, it might be different. So in those cases, you will need to be in good standing in both of those states or multiple states. The business must have an active business license if it's required by your state or local government. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later as well. The other key factor in eligibility is the business must be in what we call a brick and mortar location and operate in an older or historic Main Street, downtown, or commercial district in the United States. So what does this mean? A brick and mortar location means you must have a physically present storefront and to be in a Main Street, downtown, or commercial district. So if you look at some of the pictures we have here, we see an example, buildings that kind of exist on those commercial corridors where people tend to flock, where they tend to go to run their errands on the weekend. They might be going into multiple different stores in that zone to shop, things like that. That's really what we mean by a Main Street, downtown, or commercial district. We know that there is a lot of differences between different kinds of communities, whether you are in a more urban area or a more rural one, maybe depending on the local average income of the area, even East Coast to West Coast. What looks like a Main Street is going to be very different. But we're really talking about those places where when people say, hey, I'm going downtown, that's the target area that we're looking for. The businesses must have been in that brick and mortar location on or before January 1st, 2024. So that current brick and mortar location, January 1st, 2024. And you have to have been open for business on or before January 1st, 2023. So even if you were not in your current brick and mortar location in, say, February 2023, as long as your business was operating in general, maybe you were in a different brick and mortar location, maybe at the time you were only an online business, you would still be eligible as long as your business was open on or before January 1st, 2023, and in the current brick and mortar location on or before January 1st, 2024. Right? So that means that this grant, it's not for startup businesses. It's not for people who are, kind of looking for initial seed money to get their business started and off the ground. We're looking for businesses that have been operating for a decent chunk of time and who have been in their current brick and mortar location for at least several months on or before January 1st, 2024. Some businesses that are not eligible would be some of these examples on the bottom right here. So if you're in more of an office park or a commercial shopping mall, if you run a home-based business, those would not be considered part of a historic Main Street, downtown, or commercial district. Some other folks who are not eligible for this program. Nonprofit businesses are not eligible for this grant. We do have other funding opportunities which are open to nonprofits. However, this one in particular is not. So if you are a nonprofit who is seeking funding, we encourage you to check out our website and look for some of those alternative options. As I mentioned before, if your business is online or virtual only, you are not eligible. You must have that brick and mortar location. If you're a home-based business, that is also not eligible. Even if your home is in that commercial corridor in that main street or downtown zone, you must have a brick and mortar business that is separate from the home. This also includes mobile businesses. So if you run something out of a truck or a mobile van and you go around to different areas in your community, those are really great options, but unfortunately, they are not going to be eligible for this particular grant program. Similarly, if you're a franchise, you are not eligible for this grant program. If your business has a stall within a co-working space, if you own like a booth, or even if it's a little bit of a closed off office, but you're still based out of that central co-working area, unfortunately, you are not eligible for this program. That would also include, for example, we've seen in places like salons where people might be working as an independent hairdresser or someone offering that kind of service. Even if they're in a brick and mortar location, if the location isn't solely for their business and they're maybe working alongside other independent salon owners, that would not qualify for this grant as well. Businesses that are in office parks as well, usually those tend to be quite far away from the kind of core downtown Main Street areas that we're looking for. Same thing with commercial shopping malls. We really want to get to kind of the heart of the community where the people come to congregate, where they go to spend their weekends or their evenings. Also, if you were a 2023 grant recipient, that means if you received funding from us in 2023 through the Backing Small Businesses Grant Program, you are not eligible for the program this year. If you only applied, you may still apply again this year. If you applied or were a recipient in 2021 or 2022, you are still eligible. So it's only people who received grant money in 2023 who are not eligible this year. When you're planning your application, we have a pretty wide open list of what those funds can go to. So some of those would include accessibility upgrades, adding ramps, menu translations, website redesigns, things like that. You could also apply for money for community events and programs like an open mic night, training or educational workshops, community fundraisers, partnering with other small businesses in your area. You could put the money towards equipment and inventory, such as POS software, purchasing items for sale, inventory, display cases, kitchen equipment. You can put the money towards marketing, such as investing in a social media campaign or helping build out a website for your business. You could look at operational strategies, purchasing accounting software, getting some sort of coaching, or any other kind of support that would help increase the viability of your business. You could also look at physical improvements, signage, awnings, painting, or physical repairs to your space, new shelving, new lighting. That also includes sustainability upgrades if you want to add solar panels or a rain garden, investing in any kind of reusable or compostable or recyclable packaging alternatives. You could also look at technology upgrades, such as building an online storefront, adding an online ordering system or another type of e-commerce platform to your brick and mortar location. And you can also use the money towards utilities. Of note here, out of the total $10,000 that the grant will be awarding, utilities cannot be more than 20% or $2,000 of the requested funds. So we will allow utilities to be part of the money spent. However, the majority should be going into other categories for funding. This is not an exhaustive list. If you have a really unique and cool idea, we definitely encourage you to apply. One thing to note is that payroll is not an eligible grant expense. So this cannot go towards salaries. That includes, if you are doing a community event, that includes salaries for people who are working for that specific event. So no payroll in this program. So let's talk about the application. A couple of key dates here for you all. So the application will be opening tomorrow, Thursday, March 14th at 9 a.m. Central Time. We'll talk about how to access that application when it opens in just a moment. The application is currently scheduled to close on April 7th at 11:59 p.m. Central Time. However, if we reach 5,000 applications before that date and time, the application will close early and we will not accept any further applications from that point. We will be advertising on both our website page and via our social media, as well as reaching out to some various community organizations to let them know when we start approaching that 5,000 maximum. So keep an eye out on social media and on our website for that information. But that deadline may come sooner than you expect, so we encourage people to apply early in the window whenever possible. Throughout April and May is when we will be doing our review. That is also when we will follow up with people if we have specific questions. If we are missing paperwork, if there's a discrepancy, maybe there's a typo in their business name and we're not able to verify it, or we're unable to verify their EIN or social security number, we will follow up during those few months. So please keep an eye out for emails from us if we do have those questions. And then in mid-June is when we plan to announce the recipients and award the funds. So please hold off emailing us about updates on your application until mid-June. We will be notifying everybody at that time whether or not they have received the grant funds. Once the funds are awarded in mid-June, you have until September 9th at 11:59 p.m. Central Time to spend the money. So this is something to consider when you're building out your application. You will have a little bit less than 3 months from mid-June to September 9th to spend $10,000. Sometimes it's really easy to spend that money very quickly. Other times, depending on your project, that money might take more time to spend, and that's something to consider when you're looking at your application. If you receive funds from us, we will have a final report that we will have you do. We will offer guidance and more details on what that final report involves once we have determined this year's recipients. But that final report will be due 1 week after the spending deadline. It will be open a little bit before the spending deadline. So if you've already spent the money, you will be able to go in early to complete that final report, but we will need everyone's report by September 16th. So how do you access the application once it goes live? The application link will appear on our website, where you can also currently go to see FAQs, terms and conditions, things like that. So the application link will appear there. So keep an eye out on that page at 9 a.m. Central Time on March 14th. When you click on that link, you will have to create a Submittable account. Submittable is the website platform that we use to handle and host all of our applications. So that's why you have to create a separate account for them. If you look in the top right on this slide, it's a very simple sign-up process. You'll just have your email, a password, you'll have your first name and last name in there. It's very quick, very easy. Once you sign up, you will get an email link, which looks like the image in the bottom left of this slide. The email will come from notifications@email.submittable.com. So if you want to take note of that email address, you can add it to your safe senders list. You can make sure it doesn't go into your spam or junk inbox. That email will have you confirm your email address. So if you need to log back into Submittable at any time, once your email address is confirmed, it makes that process much easier. If you've previously applied either to one of our programs or maybe to something else using Submittable, there's also a sign-in option, which you can use with your old username, email address, and password. If you have any technical problems with creating your Submittable account, you will need to contact Submittable's help team and their support team. There are links on their website to get in contact with them, to reach out to their support team. We are unable to provide technical help if you're having an issue logging in or signing up. That's something that they handle entirely on their side. Once you log into the application, you will see two primary forms. The first thing you will see is an eligibility form, which will ask you to verify that yes, you are eligible based on all of the terms that we've previously described. You can only access the main application once you've finished that eligibility form. And we will be double checking eligibility during our review process. So don't think that just because you check yes to every single question that we won't catch it. We are looking at eligibility when we're reviewing. So if you are definitely not eligible and you apply, all you are doing is taking a spot from one of the other 5,000 applicants. So please make sure that you are eligible when you submit your application. Once you've submitted that eligibility form, you will then proceed to the main application form, which will be the bulk of the questions about your business, and we'll go over those in more detail. We will, for this year, for the first time, be providing a pre-translated guide to the application in Spanish. We will be linking that to our website. This is something that we're trying out for the first time, so if there's any issues, please let us know. But the reason we wanted to do this was to be able to provide some information about the application questions, the instructional text that's located on the application, and help some people who need that translation available. Because this is our first time testing it out, it is only going to be available in Spanish at this time. However, the actual web page on Submittable is also translatable with Google Translate. So if you have that extension on your web browser, you can translate into multiple other languages as well. But when you're filling out the application, even if you're using that pre-translated guide, or if you've translated the web page with Google Translate, the application itself must be filled out in English. Once you've filled out the application questions, there will be options at the bottom of the form to save a draft. Please make sure that you double check your work because once you click the actual submit button at the bottom of the page, you will not be able to get back in and make any edits to your application. So if you have anything that you need to go back and fix, save the draft, fix those things first before you click submit. What information should you have at the ready when you're filling out the application? Some of the application questions will ask for photos or videos of your business. We're basically trying to look and see what would it feel like if we were to walk in to your business. This helps give our reviewers a sense of what the business and the community is like. So we want to see your storefront from the outside. We want to see the street and the area around your business. And we also want to see the main interior spaces. This can both be public spaces, like if you have a cafe, we want to see the main area there, but it can also include non-public spaces where your staff works on a daily basis. If your grant is proposing for any kind of accessibility or physical repair projects, we also want to see before photos of that area so that we know what things looked like before. And then when you fill out that final grant report at the end, we will ask for after photos as well. So we get both ends of the spectrum. Also, when you're filling out the application, we highly recommend that you have handy a copy of your most recent business tax return. We're not going to ask you to upload it, but there are questions on the application that ask for very specific versions of your business name, and we need those to be accurate to how you fill them out on your business tax returns. If the name does not match, it can cause issues for us issuing payment later. So we recommend having that tax return handy so that you can copy it exactly as it appears on the tax return. And there will be details on the application form telling you where to find that information as well. If you are a sole proprietor or a single member LLC business type, we will ask you to upload a copy of your business license. For all other businesses, other types of LLCs, corporations, we will be doing a search on our end internally when we're reviewing to double check your business license and your certificate of good standing. But for sole proprietors, some states don't have that information publicly available on their website. So we ask you all to please upload it from your end. That business license can be one that's issued by the city, by the county, by the state. We know different towns and different cities and counties do it all differently. So we want to see a copy of a valid business license for your area, for your type of business. We also recommend before you fill out the application that you double check that you are in good standing in the state where your business is formed and the state where you perform work. Again, we will not ask you to upload a copy of this, but we want you to verify it from your end so that when we go and we do our internal review and we are looking for those certificates internally on our end, that we don't run into any issues. So how do I check if I'm in good standing? This is a little bit complicated because every website is different for every single state. Usually this search is done through the Secretary of State website, but the best way to find that link is to Google business entity lookup or business entity search and include the name of your state. There is also a website, secstates.com, which has a list of every single state at the bottom of the page. And then when you click on that specific state, it will provide a link to the website. This is a website that's not sponsored by Main Street America. It's not the most user-friendly website, but it does have accurate links. So you can use that if you prefer not to do the Google search. As I mentioned before, if you're a sole proprietor or a single member LLC, or even a partnership, you may not be listed on the website. So you may not be able to pull that certificate of good standing yourself. Once you get to the page, different states will have different ways that you can look it up. Some are very strict. You have to have the exact business entity name as it's spelled on your tax return. Other states have a little bit more forgiving of a search process where you can look by keyword. You might be able to look up by your address or by the person who is the registered agent who registered your business with the state. But once you pull up your search results, you should see something that indicates your business is active, in good standing, approved, some sort of positive language like that. If you are marked as inactive or delinquent or non-compliant or something along those lines, most of the time, this is due to a missing annual report or fee to the state and can usually be fixed by filing or paying online. And you'll have to look to your specific website to see how you can do that. If it's not clearly indicated on the website, we recommend calling the department or office, that Secretary of State, to figure out what you need to do to correct it. Some states won't use anything as part of this search. So if that happens, that's okay. We understand, but most states, this service is available for free and open to the public. So on the application itself, what kinds of questions should you expect? As I mentioned before, you will go through the eligibility form, confirming that you are eligible based on the terms we discussed above. Then once you get to the main application form, the first section will be basic owner and business information. This is where you will need those tax returns on hand to make sure that you have the exact language for how your business name is taxed. You can see on the bottom here an example of what one of those questions looks like on the application. It will identify based on the type of business entity that you are, whether that's a sole proprietor, LLC, partnership, or corporation. It will give you guidance on what type of form you should have filled out when you were filling out your application. So if that form is not present in your business tax return, you should double check with your accountant and make sure that you've answered that question correctly. If you are an LLC, LLCs can be listed as LLCs, but then are taxed as sole proprietors or corporations or partnerships. So the application will guide you through that based on what type of form you filled out as an LLC. But please keep an eye on that. And then in the instructional text, it will also tell you what sort of language you need to include. For example, if you were an LLC and it was L.L.C. we would need it exactly as it's listed on your business tax return. If you indicate that you're a sole proprietor, this portion is also where you would be asked to upload that copy of your business license, as well as contact info and ownership information for the owners. Again, this application should be filled out by the owners, but later in the application, there will be a space to indicate if you had any help, such as somebody to help you translate while you were filling out the application. The next section of the application will ask you for those photos or a video of your business, that's interior and exterior. And this is especially important because it helps give us that sense of what your business is like. If you're not the strongest writer, if maybe English isn't your first language, these photos and videos are infinitely more important because they really help show us what it feels like to be in your business. And it really gives us that sense of why your business is important, why it should be a recipient of this grant. The next section will be a business overview. So this will include listing when your business opened. You don't have to know the exact date that you opened. If you have an approximate month and year, that will suffice, and the application will explain that for you as well. It will also ask you for the number of full-time employees, or what we call full-time equivalent employees, or FTEs. So the way this is calculated is if you have a number of part-time employees and maybe, let's say they each work about a quarter of the number of hours of what a full-time employee would work, when you add them together, 4 of them total 1 full-time equivalent employee. So this is a little bit of an estimate. It doesn't have to be super exact. We don't want to know that you have 7.239 employees. You can round to the nearest, half or whole number. But just to give us a sense of roughly the number of people that you have working. If you have seasonal employees as well, the application has instructional text on how you should calculate those. Next, there will be a section which will have you include any website or social media links so that our team can go in and take a look and kind of, again, get that sense of what your business is like. What sort of things do you do on a daily basis? What are some special events that you might host? Then the bulk of the application is made up of short answer questions and the project description and the short budget. The short answer questions are 250 words or less. So there is an actual cap that you have when you're writing it. So just be concise. We don't want like a full, multi-page novel about your business. We want this to be accessible and easy for you all to fill out as well, because we know that you're very busy. So some of these questions will include things like how you started your business, what made you want to be a small business owner, and then how has your business grown and what products and services do you currently offer? We also want to know how your businesses engage with your community. What sorts of programs are you involved with? Anything special about your business that kind of stands out and makes you unique? Then for the actual grant, we want a project description, so a detailed paragraph about what you plan to do with the money and why, and then a short budget. These budgets are intended to be bullet point budgets. You can see an example on the right-hand side here. They're not highly detailed. We want enough detail to know where the money is going and that you've thought about it and that you have a plan to be able to hit the ground running, because again, you only have 3 months to spend that money. So we want to know that you have the ideas ready to go. But it doesn't have to be completely itemized. We don't need to know about every single piece of paper or every single pencil that you're purchasing as part of the grant. If you do have something like an Excel spreadsheet, there is also an optional space to upload a separate file as well as typing out the budget like this. Some things you'll notice in this example budget, it includes any suppliers or any contractors that I might be working with. So in this example, this is kind of set up as a cafe that's purchasing specific POS terminals from Square. So we want to know that you have a certain supplier in mind so that the actual price is a price that you've pulled from that particular supplier. And for example, we have flooring repairs. We want to know that you have contractors lined up and that you know who you're going to be purchasing those services from. Then the final portion of the application is an optional questions section. Anything that's in here will not be seen by our review team. It is just for our kind of metadata about the program so that we can continue to improve and evolve. So some of those might be some demographic questions. This is also where if you did have somebody help you out while you were filling out the application, for example, if you had somebody who was helping translate for you so that you could answer the application questions in English, you can put their contact information in here. This way, if we have to reach out to you, if we have any questions about any of your paperwork or the information that you put in during that review period in April and May, we will also reach out to the person that you list as well so that they can continue to help you answer our questions. We also want to know if you're connected to a local Main Street program so that we know whether this is reaching areas where our network currently exists or if we're reaching areas where we might not have a presence so far. So we're really looking to see how that lines up. And again, The questions in this section will be optional. So if you don't feel comfortable answering any of these questions, they will not impact your review scores. They will not be seen by our reviewers. So you can leave those questions blank if you would like to. When it comes to reviewing, what are we looking at from our end? We will be reviewing every single application that comes through. So every one of the 5,000 applications will get an initial first round review. And then from there, we will be whittling down to smaller and smaller amounts until we reach the final 500 recipients. So our team is going to be looking at eligibility. We're going to be double checking that you are in that brick and mortar location in those commercial downtown areas. So please make sure that you're only applying if you are eligible for this grant program. We also look at feasibility. So the project has to be completed with $10,000 by September 9th, 2024. As I mentioned earlier, sometimes that goes real fast. Other times that's not enough time to spend $10,000. So we want to know that you have your suppliers and contractors lined up, that you're ready to hit the ground running once you receive the monies. If you're doing any kind of construction project, you need to know if you need permits. Sometimes getting permits from the town or city can take a lot longer than those 3 months. So if you're doing any kind of work that requires a permit, we usually expect that they've been obtained beforehand, or that you at least know if a permit is not required. We also judge the applications based on need. So there will be a question in the application about your business's net sales. There is also a question asking if your business is located in a low-income census tract, and the application has specific instructions on how to look up your address on a map that's provided from the census data. We also want to know what are some of the systemic challenges that your business might be facing. We want to know the context. Are you experiencing a staffing shortage, or maybe you have a high bank loan interest rate or supply chain issues? We want to know that this money is going towards a business who is in need of it and that it will assist. We also look at the impact. So we want to know that the businesses that the money is going to are viable and that they're sustainable, and that this money will be used to help leverage their sales, grow their customer bases, and explore new opportunities that they couldn't if they did not receive these grant funds. And then finally, we want to look for businesses that have what we call community reach. We want to know that this small business is involved in the community. It helps provide a sense of identity to the neighborhood or town or area, and that your business serves specific communities or maybe the broad community as a whole through some of the funds offered on the grant. So this community reach portion is a little bit specific to your particular business and context. Sometimes it can be a very broad range. Maybe you are a coffee shop and you offer open mic nights that anybody can attend, and you promote different artists, things like that. Other times it might be something that's more targeted and specific for a community that maybe doesn't get as much representation in your community. Maybe you have a specific volunteer program that works with veterans, or maybe you are a salon that provides a very specific service to a specific portion of the community that is not otherwise available in your general area. So we want to know that you're participating in your community. This could also involve things like sponsoring local programs or being part of community and town events as well. So what makes a particularly strong application? In addition to just filling out the answers, what do we want to see? What will make your application stand out among the rest? The first thing is that we want the pictures and video of your business to highlight what a typical day at the business is like. We want to know what it would feel like to walk down the street, walk into your business, and be a part of your community. We also want to make sure that if you are requesting those physical or accessibility improvements, that you have those before photos included. We want your application to show pride in your business and your neighborhood. What are you doing that is unique to your business? It's something that other people might not be doing. We want to see that you are involved in and critical to the surrounding community, that you serve a specific need, or you provide a sense of identity. You're part of the kind of makeup and weave of your town, your neighborhood, or your specific cultural group. And we want you to be honest about concerns and difficulties. we want these grants to go towards businesses that need this money. We don't want to be sending money to businesses that are already doing fantastic, and they don't need this money as much as some of the other businesses in their area might. So how can this grant in particular be useful for you? How will it support your business? How will it help it stay vital and viable? How can it help you expand your customer base, do new things that you've never done before because you just haven't had the time or the opportunity or the funds available? We also want to make sure that your projects are feasible. So when it comes to budgeting, we want to make sure that you have broken down the budget by expense categories. Don't just tell us that you need $10,000 to go towards repairs. Tell us what those repairs are. Who are your contractors? Who are your suppliers that you're going to be engaging? We want to make sure that you have that all planned out and pre-thought so that, again, you can hit the ground running when the money is received. And then finally, we want you to be clear and concise. We're not going to be grading you on your grammar or your spelling. We know that there are a lot of small business owners who English is not your first language. We want this program to be accessible to people. So it's not just based on having the most perfectly written application, but we still want to be able to understand where the grant money is going and how you plan to spend it. Again, this is why those photos and videos are so critical, because they can really help fill in some of those areas if you're not the best writer. Alrighty, so that is our main program today. You have our contact information here. As I mentioned earlier at the start of the program, we will be sending out a link to the recording from today's session to folks after the session is over. It will take us a little bit of time to render that recording, so please don't contact us until about noon tomorrow. At that point, if you haven't received the recording, let us know. If you have questions along the way, the smallbizgrant@mainstreet.org email is the best place to email. However, we recommend double checking on our website. There is a FAQ document that is available there. So if you have any questions that are commonly asked questions, double check the website. And if your question is still not answered, then feel free to reach out to us. So that is all we have for now. We do have a lot of questions in the chat here, so we will take some time to go through. If any of our other folks from Main Street see any common questions in the chat that you would like to verbally answer, we have some time for that as well.
Hey, Amanda, this is Liz. We have some attendees that have their hands raised. Would you like to go ahead and go through those questions first?
Yeah, we can absolutely do that. So
Okay, so
with Michelle Burns, you should see an option that will allow you to talk.
Hi, great. Can you hear me?
Yep.
First of all, that was a very concise, great program, and thank you. Thank you for respecting our time. So I have a brick and mortar building. It's a little restaurant in a lovely neighborhood, an older neighborhood. The area is actually historic, but my question is, we're a mile from the quote unquote Main Street. Although we belong as a member to the local chamber in Main Street, is that going to kick me out of eligibility?
No, so as long as you're still in kind of a primary commercial corridor in your town, you
Okay.
would still be eligible even if the street name itself is not Main Street or you're not like the particular hub. We just
Okay.
want to make sure that your business is not in a primarily residential zone, that it's an area that people will still flock to for multiple different commercial purposes.
A lot of people flock to me, and you're in Chicago, and I'm here in Illinois, Sterling, Illinois. So I think you should flock to me and have some barbecue. Thank you for your great meeting.
Thank you. All right. We also have Abamel.
Hi, are you able to hear me now?
Yep.
Okay. I just have a question. I believe you mentioned that if we did get the first round for the 5,000 2023, we wouldn't qualify anymore.
Correct. Yep. So if you received grant money in 2023, you are not eligible this year. If you received money in 2021 or 2022, you are still eligible. But 2023, we want to make sure that we're reaching new business owners every single year.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Next up, we have Kara. Kara, can you hear us? You should be able to unmute.
I did not have a question. I'm not sure. I didn't mean to
Okay.
raise my hand. I'm sorry.
No
Thank
worries.
you though. I've enjoyed
Not a
it.
problem. Not a problem. All right, we have Randy as well. In here. Randy, you should be able to unmute. All right. If you're struggling, we can move on to Susan here. Susan, you should be able to unmute as well. We'll keep your hands up, and if you're able to unmute a little bit later, just let us know. All right, we have Bilal in here. Oh, there goes Susan. Susan,
Sorry,
can you-
I didn't realize I had my hand up either, but I also just wanted to clarify. So if we're in a community that has a designated Main Street area, but a business that's part of our business is located just on a different business corridor, that doesn't necessarily exclude the other business. Is that true?
It does not. Yeah. So this particular grant program is open to small business owners who are eligible, even if they're not within one of our Main Street designated areas. So
Okay.
that could be a business outside of that zone as it's been mapped out. It could also be a town or city that doesn't have a Main Street America program.
Okay, and the key being that it's not a primarily residential area.
Correct. Yeah. So we want it to be part of a commercial corridor.
Perfect. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Cool. All right, we have Takara as well, if you still have a question. We also have Bilal. You should be able to unmute.
How you doing, Amanda?
Good.
Wonderful. This question is pertaining the brick and mortar. I am in a hub zone, I know that, but I am in it's not an office park, but it's a big warehouse that's been converted to shared office spaces. Will our business still be eligible?
That is a very good question. Do your businesses, they all have kind of their own specific entrance? They're not off of like a common co-working area?
No, it's not a co-working area at all. We have our own independent offices, yes.
Okay. In that
Yep.
case, we would consider that eligible.
Okay.
One thing to note when we're reviewing applications is we do also look at what type of business it is. And we know
Okay.
that sometimes certain types of businesses may not be on that same prominent storefront as like a cafe would be or a thrift store. You know, we see applications from things like doctor's offices or
Tax
car
and
mechanic
accounting.
shops, taxes and accountants. Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So we understand that that your storefront may not be the same kind of storefront location as like a cafe or a coffee shop would be.
All right, thank you, Amanda.
Yeah, absolutely. And Takara, we should be able to hear you now as well.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So my business is actually located in Copley, Ohio. How would I determine if my business is eligible for this grant?
Yeah, so if you missed the first part of the presentation, we talked a little bit about eligibility. So you
Okay.
will receive a recording of the session today afterwards. It
Uh,
might take us a little bit of time for that to render, but by
Okay.
noon tomorrow, you should have a copy of that. We also
So-
encourage you to take a look at our website page as well, which lists some of those eligibility requirements on there.
Okay.
Perfect. We also have Ava. Ava, you should be able to unmute.
I can. Can you hear me?
Perfect. Yep.
Awesome. Thank you again, Amanda. Very quickly, similar to someone else's question, I'm in downtown Albany, Georgia. And as a matter of fact, my client received this mainstream grant, 25,000 Cornerstone Coffee. So my question is, we're actually all located in downtown Albany, but my office is in what's called a micro business center building, where there are multiple businesses in that building, but all of us are kind of in the I guess the same category you would say what they would consider as disadvantaged businesses. Would my business qualify for this grant if we're inside of this building?
So if you're in a primary space that's a co-working space like that, you would not be eligible.
Okay.
If that space is just for your administrative offices and you have perhaps a retail storefront that is separate, and the money for the grant would be going towards improvements for that specific brick and mortar location, then we would consider that eligible.
Thank you.
All right, we have Stephanie as well. Get you in here. All right, Stephanie, you should be able to unmute. Yep.
Can you hear me?
Yep, perfect.
Okay. Yes, we changed business entities from a sole proprietorship, which is how we file our 2023 taxes. So in 2024, we're now an LLC. So how does that affect the application?
Yeah, so we'll be going based off of your most current business status. When it comes to making sure that you have the exact name as it would be spelled on your tax return from this year, if you haven't filed yet, just make sure you're in touch with your accountant or your tax return staff so that they have the exact name as it would be filed from your 2024 taxes.
From the 2020, okay, because they're in the process of filing 2023 taxes.
Yeah, so just make sure that whatever the current business status and that current entity name is, because when you receive the funds, that's when we will need to make sure that the name
For
exactly
the new
matches.
year, yeah, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Good information, appreciate it.
So we've also got Marie here. Get you in as well. All right, Marie, you should be able to unmute.
Got it. Hello, how are you?
Great, thank you.
Good. Thank you for your time today. I have I have some questions. I'll make them really quick. I am a media company radio station. I know it's different than a lot of what was said about eligible businesses, but with my business, and I do work with the community. I work with the city of Cleveland and the Youth Opportunities Unlimited program and stuff like that. Toys for Tots, the marine supply and everything. Would my business still be eligible?
So I guess my question would be, do you have your own brick and mortar location that your business solely operates from, or are you working in a shared space with other radio producers?
Okay, so I have my own station space and studio.
Mhm.
I rent, I'm in downtown, I'm on Euclid Avenue across from Channel 5, across from the Board of Elections. You know, if you know about Euclid, Euclid is nothing but businesses, you know. But I'm in my own office space inside of a building.
Okay. If you have your own space that is dedicated to just your business,
Yes,
uh,
absolutely.
we would consider that eligible. If you were like an independent contractor who was using somebody else's studio space, that would not be eligible.
Right. Okay, got that. Okay, and then would me purchasing equipment be okay for the grant?
Yeah, equipment purchases, inventory, things like that.
That's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. And then you mention something about how long I've been in my space for a little bit over 3 years. Did you mention something about, how long you'd have to be at the location?
Yes, so you have to have
Okay.
been in your current brick and mortar on or before January 1st,
Oh, that's
2024, and
yeah.
have been in business on or before January 1st, 2023.
Oh, okay, that's no problem. And then my last question, I'm sorry.
Mhm.
Paying for help. So that means I wouldn't be allowed to pay for performers or engineers, right? Just the space that I'm using.
Correct. Yeah. So
Okay, got it, got it.
payroll
Got it.
for anybody, whether that's a volunteer, whether that's somebody on your current staff, or whether it's somebody you're bringing in for a specific program, payroll for labor is not going to be part of the grant funds.
Yeah.
However, if you are paying for like a physical repair and you're paying a contractor, that part is approved.
Okay. Okay, now, okay, so when I'm hearing payroll, I'm thinking about monthly every 2 weeks, but what about one-time pay for the services? Like you mentioned, open mic night. So let me be specific. So, I want to have a comedy show again on the new Lady Caroline. Would I be able to pay for the band and the performers for that one-time usage, or that's still considered payroll?
So what we would do is we would consider that payroll, but what we would
Okay,
encourage you
okay,
to do is find other uses for the grant funds that are non-payroll related,
got
which
it.
may then open up your overall business budget
Okay,
to pay those
okay,
performers. But the actual grant funds themselves should not be spent on payroll, even for those one-time performers.
okay, got it, got it. Okay, that's it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm.
All right. We also have we've got Mel. I'll pull you up here. You should be able to speak now.
All right, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Perfect, thank you so much. My question is about the tax returns. We have been in business exactly 2 years as of this last January 2024. And the first year we didn't have any income. It was just basically building everything up and putting money into the business. And then 2023, we actually got a location, a physical location. And we just filed an extension for our taxes. We haven't filed them yet. So will that disqualify me if I don't have my tax returns yet?
It will not disqualify you. We're not asking you to upload a copy of your tax return. The main reason that you want the tax return on hand is to make sure that when you're answering the question about your business's legal entity name, that it's spelled exactly the same way that it would be spelled on that tax return. So make sure you're talking with
Okay,
your accountant and your business team that you have that exactly correct. That would include things like punctuation, if it has the words LLC or Corp or Inc. afterwards. That's really why we need that tax return handy. It's just so you make sure you've got that spelling right on the first go, and we don't have to follow up with you about it later.
oh, I understand. Okay, and I do have my business license and the certificate of issuance also that has everything as it's spelled. So
Perfect. Yep, those should line up. So
great.
awesome.
Thank you very much. And this presentation was great. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Awesome. All right. We have Sarah as well.
Hello, I just had one quick question with regard to the employee count. So I am currently not paying myself a full salary and I am the only employee, but would I count as an FTE? And then is there a minimum or a maximum? Or I
Yeah,
know there's a
you
maximum. Is there a minimum?
you would definitely count as one full-time employee. Yep, even if you're not paying yourself, we know that that's the case for a lot of sole proprietors or single member LLCs. So just list yourself as one, and that's totally fine.
Awesome. Thanks so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have Melissa as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Awesome. Thank you. This is very informative. I have a question about just the timing of if monies are awarded, like, are you looking for the improvements or whatever we're using the money on to be done after the grant money? Because sometimes cash flow is a thing, and like my awning came off over winter because of a storm. So I'm starting to improve it now. Insurance is covering some of it, but I can't cover the rest of the funds. But I might have to before any money's awarded. Is that something that can still be listed if it technically I had to pay for it before money was awarded?
So we would look for the grant money to be for things that are spent once the grant money is received.
Okay.
So in that case, it would not be eligible.
Okay. Okay. But just like, because like we start our outdoor season in May, and that's when like our business needs the biggest lift because we're coming out of winter. We have a lot more summer business. So I just got to pick different things that I would be after June into the fall to use the grant money for then.
Correct. And
Okay.
this kind of gets into what we talked about a little bit earlier with one of the questions of, if you know that you're going to be spending money on, say, repairing that awning early, when you're looking at your overall business budget, if you can find other eligible expenses that would be spent after you receive the funds that might be part of your regular operating budget, that aren't payroll, like getting inventory or things like that, those
Sure.
would be eligible for the grant funds.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification.
Absolutely. Right, we also have Bethany here with us.
Hello. So I put this in the chat and I see Joy has sort of a similar question. She asked multiple businesses at one address. And if I'm understanding correctly, as long as they each have their own separate interests, separate office space. My question though, is that we own the building that rents to another company. The building owner, well, actually I own both companies, but the building owner company is responsible for the repairs, for equipment. We rent a complete facility to the second company. So would that building owner qualify? We own the place and we have a company, but we're not the one necessarily using the space for us.
We would want the company that uses the space and operates within it to be
And the one who uses it is a nonprofit. That's what I was trying to see if, since I originally thought we're nonprofit, but they don't qualify. So I thought, well, maybe the owner would.
No, we would ask for the actual business who would be receiving the funds.
All
who's
right,
using that
thank
space
you.
and operating. Yeah, appreciate it though. Definitely look out on our website for other opportunities that are available to nonprofits for sure.
I will.
All right. We also have Mimosa here. You should be able to unmute and speak. If you're having some trouble, you can always put the question in the Q&A chat as well. I don't know if we can hear. So I'm going to move along to Ella. Pull you up here.
Yes, I'm here. Hello, Amanda. Thank you for the presentation. I have a couple of questions. My first question is, we're a social enterprise, so we do partner with the community quite a bit, but we just recently acquired our brick and mortar space in January. So we've been a mobile business for since 2021, but we got our lease signed in January. And I'm just wondering, okay, we're still not in the space because we're working with architects and construction right now. So is that going to be an issue for me applying because we're not actually we're in the space where we're cleaning up, but in building. So is that going to be an issue for us now because we're not actually like hosting our events and our tea parties out of there yet? Or do I just wanted to find out if I have to wait for next year. That's my first question.
Yeah, that is a very good question. I would actually have to double check with our specific terms to make sure that I'm giving you an accurate answer. But if you said that you have been owning or renting a lease since January 1st. Okay. If you could email smallbizgrants@mainstreet.org and just re-put your question in there. I want to double check that just to make sure.
Small biz grants. I'm sorry.
And that's biz, B-I-Z, and then grants with an S at the end.
And you said
at mainstreet.org.
Okay, at mainstreet.org. Okay, I can do that. Yeah. And then my other question is, for all the previous winners, like you talked about a lot of the restrictions and compliance, and then talked about telling our story as well. But do you have footage or links to like the people that did win the grants and their stories, and like do they highlight those? Because where can I see that information?
Yeah, if you go to our website, which is mainstreet.org, we have a section that has like blogs and news stories. So those will be posted there. You can search for backing small businesses. It also used to be referred to as inclusive backing back in the early stages. So you can search for those on our blogs and find some of those stories on there. We also have a podcast that's run by one of our Main Street staff members who actually just featured a woman from Brewability, which was one of our initial grant and an enhancement grant winner from 2023.
Love it. Okay, that's fantastic to hear. Thank you.
Amanda, we did get the question from Mimosa in the chat. It sounds like her she was not able to unmute. So she's curious if cooperative businesses are eligible. So I'll read her question specifically. My question is, will we be eligible to apply as a cooperative corporation?
Ooh, that is a very good question. It would depend on your business structure in particular. So if you're listed as a C Corp or an S Corp, in that case, you would be eligible to apply. If the owners of the corporation, so the owners for the corporation where the money would be sent to would be the ones who would need to fill out the application. So those who are listed as owners when your business is registered in your particular state. And I hope that answers your question. If you have more specific questions about your particular circumstance, feel free to email us at that smallbizgrants@mainstreet.org. And we can talk about your situation in particular. All right, let me pull up Charmaine as well.
Hello.
Hello.
Okay, great. Wants to make sure you can hear me. Okay, I have I think a similar issue from previous person who asked the question. So we've been in business. We have our commercial space, standalone, but still in the commercial district, all that jazz. We are in the process of renovating a new space to move. And so we have a lease. We've technically been doing business because we've been paying, contractors and vendors for construction efforts. So would we be able to request funding for continuing the renovation, even though we technically haven't moved into that space, or would it have to be specifically toward programming in our current space?
Yeah, so the grant funds would have to be spent from the time when the monies are awarded until September 9th. So when it comes to the larger construction piece, my assumption is that if you're doing a much larger renovation project, that you would not have that specific time window for the total cost of the project. These grant funds are also intended to be discrete, where we, as part of the terms and conditions, when you look on our website, it lists that you can't be spending this money towards opportunities where there's other funding that you've already acquired. So those kinds of much larger grand construction projects where you might have other grant funds coming in would not be eligible. So I would recommend for a stronger application to look towards spending the money towards your current storefront if you're continuing to operate while the renovation.
Thank you. I have one more question. Regarding, so we are also looking into possibly using the grant for summer funding, but you said it wouldn't be awarded until September, or we would have until September to spend it?
So the funds will be awarded in mid-June, around when the public announcement of who has received the grant is announced. And from then you will have until September 9th to spend the money. So it'll be a little bit less than 3 months total.
Okay, so we would be able to request funding for summer programming and get that funding in time for summer programming.
Depending on your specific program, so mid-June, if you have something that's starting in, say, early June, and you would need the money beforehand, that would not be eligible. Only funds that you would spend after the money is received in mid-June. And as we start to nail down that timeline, we will have more announcements about that in particular, but just keep that in mind when you're thinking about your funds.
Thank you so much.
So we also have Marissa here. All right, Maria, you should be able to unmute.
Hi, Amanda. Thank you for providing so much information for me. I really appreciate it. You dug into a lot of details that I needed to determine whether I'm eligible or not. But I had a specific question about the brick and mortar aspect of it. So I've been in business for a while, about 8 years. I have a brick and mortar about 4 miles outside of the historic downtown. We did sign a lease on a brick and mortar downtown, and we're scheduled to actually open at the end of this month. Would I be eligible?
So the grant monies that you would be proposing for, if they are going towards your previous brick and mortar location that is outside of that downtown zone, like if it's in more of a residential area instead of a commercial corridor, then that would not be eligible at this time.
So I would have to wait for next year for the downtown brick and mortar second
Correct.
location. Okay.
And the definition of downtown, as we mentioned, kind of depends a little bit on your particular area. We know that there are towns where there's like one core downtown street, and that's where all the commercial activity happens. But there are also towns and areas in the US where those pockets are a little bit more spread out. There might be like specific intersections or things like that. So we will look at that specific context for your area. So if your current business, even if it's not in the exact downtown street, but it's still in a highly commercial corridor.
Oh no, it's right on Main Street. It's just, we just signed the lease though. So that's why I was wondering if we would be eligible, because I do have a brick and mortar. This is just our second location, which will be downtown. Our first main location that's been in business for a while is just outside of the downtown area.
Correct. So it would be based on that first location that's your current brick and mortar as of January 1st, 2024.
Okay, gotcha. All right, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Awesome. All right, we have Zana or Zaina. Up here.
Hi, Zana. Yes. Good morning, and thank you so much for the great presentation. So our company, Kahal Instruments, innovates and builds medical devices for treatment of medical conditions and delays for autism. So we are in the research and development stage. We've been around since 2021, but did not have the money to pay the lawyer to incorporate formally. In 2022, we even bought a 3D printer because we finalized some of the designs, especially one of the designs that is going to be the first device. And in 2022, bought a 3D printer and printed out some models. Then finally we got, in 2023, a professor from the University of California somehow reached out to National Science Foundation. And when I got word from them, I said, oh, I really have to incorporate. So we incorporated formally in March 13, 2023, and then joined National Science Foundation for their training, for 2 rounds of training in May through August. So now I don't have tax records, and it's an LLC, it's a see-through entity. Apparently everything goes through my own money. I didn't realize that. I guess did not pay the most expensive lawyer in town either. So I don't have tax records. I do have record of buying the 3D printer. I have records of designs. I have, I would not want to issue pictures of the device, but I will if it's, if it's kept unreleased, like if it's not released in the public. So anyway, but we that's the question. Do we have to be formally in existence, like in terms of incorporated, or how does it work?
Yeah, so as far as whether the business was in operation before January 1st, 2023, we would look to have some sort of records of your business's operation prior to that. So usually that looks like registering either with the state or the town if you need some sort of business license. However, if your particular case doesn't require those kinds of business licenses, but you were still operating as a sole proprietor, like it sounds like you might have been, where you were filing your business taxes as part of your personal tax return. As long as you have records from your business's operation during that period of time, we would consider that. So just make sure that you include those details in the short answers. There is a short answer question that's just kind of any additional details we should know, catch-all question. So I would make sure that that situation is clear in there on your application.
I appreciate it. We actually not required to have a license because it's a biotech company. We did do a city license in the Riverside because we are located in the downtown historical area. We are renting office space from a nonprofit. So it's like, our name on the door of the office, and I can take a whole video of the office and staff and all that. So but okay, thank you. The second question, very quick, is going to be, we're at the stage now that we really have advanced with our prototype, and we need to go out and reach to the people the National Science Foundation had trained us to reach to, the therapists. So I need to go and have booths in events. I need to have a website, all the advertising shebang. Can I use I would be like, it's in my plans to do it this summer. Can I use the money for that project? Because I have no money for that.
As long as the money would be spent in the period of time between when you receive the grant funds and when the deadline is on September 9th.
Okay.
Then those would be eligible. Those would be considered, kind of under that marketing bundle or perhaps under operating expenses because they're kind of part of the general structure of how you promote and operate your business. But it would not be eligible if, say, you had to pay for a conference fee before the money was awarded to you. So only if the money is spent during that time window.
No, what we would actually earmark it in our bank account, and we've done this with the county. Last year, we had a grant from the local county because they're trying to get the biotech in Riverside area, and that's what we did. We earmark when we get the grants in our bank account. I earmark it so you can thoroughly trace what the money was used for to the date and the buyer and everything. Like, and we're very open with our finances. We're very happy to provide every single detail to you as well. So, okay, well, thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Awesome. And so we've got just over a half an hour. We still have a decent number of hands raised here. So just a reminder that if your question is something that doesn't get answered today, you can email our smallbizgrants@mainstreet.org as well. Especially if your question pertains to something very specific and niche of your particular situation that might require us to do additional research. Just make sure that you send us an email as well, but we will try to get through as many as we can here. So we have Brenda, I'll pull you up as well.
Yes, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks for the opportunity. This is my first time participating in something like that, and I have two questions. The first one is, what happened if I can finish to fill it up the application? Can I save it, close, and back later, or do I need to finish at the same time? Number one. Number two, I have a small media newspaper, but it's a struggle because of the technology, because of the social media, because of, a lot of things um, revolutionary the media. And I have a lot of people work like a part-time, but only have two person working full-time. I am eligible for this grant or no? Thank you.
Yeah, so I'll answer your first question. So the website submittable, you will create an account when you start to fill out the application, and it will have you create a password. So you can save the draft and then log back into the website afterwards and continue working on it from there. Just make sure that you click the save as draft, not the submit button, because if you click submit, you can't get back in to edit afterwards. I would also keep an eye out as well, because we are anticipating a pretty high volume, that if we reach that 5,000 submissions, unfortunately, you would not be able to submit your draft. So it's based on when people click that submit button that number goes up, not based on who starts an application.
Okay.
As far as your second question, when you're calculating your full-time employees, so we're looking for about 20 full-time employees total. So the way you would calculate your part-time people is you would say, what does a full-time person work on an average week? Let's say a full-time position for you is 20 hours a week. And then you have multiple part-time people who work maybe 1 hour or 5 hours. So you would figure out what fraction or percentage of a full-time worker they count as, and you can add them up together. So let's say you have one employee who works full-time 20 hours, you have 4 employees who work 5 hours each. Those 4 employees together are equivalent to that 1 20-hour full-time employee.
Oh, great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have Charity as well.
Hi, yes, I have a question in regards to the, I believe it was called an office, like a plaza. It can't be in an office plaza. Is that what the word was? Okay, so I own a clinic for kids with autism, and it's located in a plaza. However, it's not only office buildings there. There's a restaurant, there's a gym, a couple of different businesses, but the space, I guess, technically would look at like an office plaza if you're looking at it. Would I still be eligible?
Yeah, so this again, our reviewers are kind of look at the specific context for your business and also the area that you're in. So for your specific case, because you're in kind of a more like clinical professional office setting, we do know that that will look like a different location than say a coffee shop or a thrift store or something like that. So we do take that into account. And then we know also there are some towns where the only kind of commercial zones are those kind of strip
Right.
malls and plazas. So we take that into account as well. But it
Okay.
sounds like the area, since it has a mixture of like restaurants and other kinds of commercial areas, it does sound like the kind of place where people would flock to for that commercial activity.
Right. For safety reasons, we can't be right on the street, but we are considered downtown. Like the Chamber of Commerce considers us in the downtown district. So, okay.
Mhm.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Takeda as well.
Can you hear me? Okay, so I have two questions. My first question is, would the individual need to have a business account attached to the business if they're a sole proprietor?
As far as a specific bank account, no. If you're a sole proprietor, and your business funds are part of your regular bank account that you use, we would just need to make sure that you have the ability to indicate when it comes to that final report, where those monies were spent. So as long as you have some sort of accounting spreadsheet that indicates, yes, this money from that account was spent towards my business, that's really what we would be looking for.
Okay, great. And my other question is, so I'm in a building that rents, I have my own entryway to my business. And it is in an area that is commercial and also where there are houses. So I'm in Wisconsin and Nina. So like the area, I guess it's like kind of industrial too, if that makes sense. Like it's like a 3-in-1, to be honest. So would that exclude me from being eligible?
Yeah, so it's a little bit, some of this is a little bit of a gray area. It's a little bit of a gut check. Does this feel like an area where people tend to go to for commercial needs in general? We know that there are some towns where those needs might all get kind of mixed in, especially we see that a lot in very, very small towns, where the residential is right there next to the commercial. But as long as it's the kind of place where people might say like, hey, I'm going into town, quote unquote, to go to the store, or it's a place where they might, handle multiple errands at a time, where there might be multiple different commercial properties that people could go into. That's kind of what we're looking for when we say like a downtown area.
Okay, so like the building I'm in is more like well, not an apartment building. It's actually like a business building. It's more like a Soloff, kind of. So there's other entities inside of the building with me as well. So I mean, I guess I'm still be considered because it's in like the area that I'm in. And then my other question was, so I know that there are like a 25 finalist list for like the $30,000. Would that be excluded if I am working to extend my services through a nonprofit as well, but still be for profit, if that makes sense?
So the enhancement grant that goes to the 25 recipients, those will be chosen from the final 500 from the initial grant. So it's not a separate application. Only the people who got the initial $10,000 grant and were part of that 500 finalists will be eligible for that enhancement grant. It will still have the same eligibility requirements. So you would not be if you were converted your business structure to a registered nonprofit, for example, you would not be eligible for that.
Well, it's not, no, I'm not converting to a nonprofit. What is happening is like I volunteer with a nonprofit that service the Black and Brown community in my area. And as a stylist, I do like back to school events and stuff like that. Like I help educate foster moms and adoptive parents and children. So I will want my services to be in the outreach with the we'll have, yeah, to extend if that makes Yeah.
Yeah,
something like
so in that case, we would consider the funds would be going to support your business. As
Right.
long as it's not payroll, so you're not paying for your
Mhm.
time, but if you're paying for like maybe marketing materials or you're paying for extra supplies to have on
Yeah.
hand, extra shampoos, things like that, we would consider those business expenses, even though the event that you're using those business products for is for a nonprofit.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right. And we have Jeanette as well.
Hi, thank you. We have a few brick and mortar locations that are all in Main Street downtown areas, but we're going to apply for one of our locations in a low income tract. If I count the entire amount of employees, once I calculate part-timers, we might be just over 20. Do I count all my employees or just for the one store that I'm applying for?
That is a very good question. I believe that we would look for that particular store, but if you could email me at smallbizgrants@mainstreet.org, I'll just have to double check with our terms and conditions just to be 100% sure.
Okay, I just emailed and it got sent back about the address it's definitely Small Biz Grant, Main Street? Not street,
Grants with an S at the end, that might be why.
Main Street or S with an N or no S with the end?
So it'll be small biz, that's B-I-Z, grants, GRANTS, at
Real quick,
mainstreet.org.
Amanda, I believe it is just grant, singular.
Yeah,
I believe it should be grants.
it got sent back to me, got
Did
beamed
it?
back.
Okay. Should go to
So,
both, but yeah, let me double check. Yes, you're correct. My apologies. It is small biz grant, no S,
Oh.
but still B-I-Z for biz.
there we go. Okay, I will do that.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Thank you. Right, we have Trish as well.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, so I had a question about the eligibility. I am in a residential / commercial area, but my business is built at my residence, but it is a separate entrance, so you cannot get into my business like from like the inside of my house or vice versa. And I am zoned for that business as commercial, even though it's at my property. Does that make me ineligible because it is on my residence property?
Yeah, so it would depend on the kind of makeup of the neighborhood in general. If it's a corridor where there are other commercial businesses as well,
Yeah.
it's a little bit of that kind of nebulous gray area.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it would kind of depend on kind of the makeup of the area. But if it's an area where perhaps you have kind of that, let's say, vertical zoning where you've got kind of commercial on first floors and then residences on second floors, as long as there's kind of a decent commercial corridor there where people tend to go for multiple commercial purposes, we
Okay,
would
yes,
consider
yeah.
that eligible.
Oh, perfect. That's great. Thank you.
All right, we have Tia as well. We'll pull you in here.
Hello, how are you?
Nice.
Good. Question. I kind of know the answer because I've been sitting and listening for a long time, but so informative. I wanted to stay on. I am a small business located in a mall, but I am on the main strip. I'm on Main Street. I'm in Connecticut, Boston Post Road. There's several businesses again, I'm a small black business in a mall. I do community services. Actually, the whole crust of my business is I allow small businesses to put their items in my store in order for them to, be able to go to work all day and still be able to make money. Would I still qualify for this? Because I'm in a mall and not on like I'm not an independent building, or how does that work?
Yeah, so when you say mall, because there's a lot of different definitions. Some people kind of see like an outdoor strip mall as a mall versus like an interior.
No, I'm in a big mall. I'm in an interior mall. It's kind of dying down. That's why I can actually be on this call for so long. But yeah, I'm in an actual mall, not a strip mall, but a mall.
Yeah, in that case, unfortunately, you would not be eligible.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Hmm. All right, we also have Jenny here with us.
Hi, thank you very much. I have a couple of questions. So we also are a cooperative. We're a food co-op, and I wonder, so there's no individual owner, but the community owns it. We have over 2,000 households. Would the application be put in by the board? And you said the cooperatives were eligible. Am I right about that?
So it would depend on your business structure and how your business is registered with the state. If your business is registered as an LLC or a C Corp or S Corp, then I would recommend emailing us at that smallbizgrant@mainstreet.org so we could look into your particular situation. But if your business is registered as some other form of business that's not strictly an LLC or a corporation, then you would not be eligible.
Yes, we are registered with us, that we're in Massachusetts, where you can register as a cooperative business. So we are a corporation, it's a corporation, but there is a special statute for cooperatives. So should I just email that information to you?
That would be great, and we could look into your specific.
And then the other question is, so we incorporated in 2012, and for the past 10 years have operated with pop-ups and supporting farmers markets. And we have had sales during that period from our pop-ups, but then we opened our brick and mortar location in October of 2023. So does that make us eligible with those two stipulations? We have tax returns from that entire period, but the brick and mortar was open fairly recently, but in 2023.
Yeah, so the brick and mortar would have been opened before that January 1st, 2024 deadline. And then you have your business operating before 2023, January 1st. So that is all perfect.
Great. Okay, well, thank you very much. This is great.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got time for a handful more questions. So just a reminder that you can also check out our website. If you have any questions, we have a lot of our FAQs answered there. If you have something very particular to your specific situation, you can always email us as well. So we'll pull Tabitha in to be able to speak.
Hello, can you hear me? Hello?
Yep,
Hello?
we can hear you. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Hi, how are you? So basically my question is in regards to eligibility. So me and myself, my husband and myself, we co-run a business where we sell online, but we actually create the garments in a studio that's downtown. We be eligible for the grant.
Yes, if that studio space is its own brick and mortar location that is uniquely owned or rented by your business, it's not part of a co-working space, then you would be eligible because you have that brick and mortar property. Even though most of your sales would be done via e-commerce, you still have that brick and mortar presence.
Oh, okay, perfect. Thank you so much. I was waiting the whole time for this question. I wanted to make sure I stayed for the whole meeting. I was just like, I just need to know if that's correct or not. I'm happy it is. So thank you.
Awesome. All right. We have Deborah as well.
Hi, Amanda. I saw that physical improvements are part of the eligible expenses, but would roof repairs be part of that, or are you looking for something like a more visible type of physical improvement?
Roof repairs would definitely count. It does get back into that question of would the monies be spent during that period from when the grant funds are released to you through September 7th. So that would really be the defining question there. Also, if you're getting other sources of funding, other grants for the roof repairs, those would not be eligible because the monies from this grant should be something discrete that just this grant is supporting. But if it's coming out of your general operating budget, that would be fine.
Okay, great. I understood that part from watching the earlier sessions. And it does look like we can kind of cobble together a whole bunch of different types of expenses and things that we would like to spend the money on, right? It doesn't have to just be all physical or all marketing or all,
Correct.
one
Yep.
category, correct?
Yeah, so if you want to spend 500 here for marketing plus 2,000 for improvements, plus you're spending 3,000 for inventory, yeah, you can pull all different categories together. There will be a question on the application that asks you to name one category just for like your main category. This is just for us to kind of track in general. It doesn't have to be 100% accurate, but yes, your budget can be a wide variety of little bits and pieces supporting your business all over.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, we have Kendra.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, I have a quick question. Some of it's been answered already, but I own a brick and mortar location. I have two doors. So on one side, we operate a venue space. On the other side, it's vacant, and it's been vacant for a while. We are trying to do physical improvement to our building. I've showed our building to multiple people to rent it out, but I think it's the physical improvement that needs to happen. Can we use these grant funds for all physical improvements to outside of the building, even if we're going to rent the other side out to another, say a coffee shop or I've had a brewery look at it, but I think it's the outside of the building that's drawing people off.
Yeah, so in that case, we would mostly look for the grants to be spent on the current business, not the space
Yeah.
that you as an owner would be renting out to a different business.
Yeah, so the business actually it's one building altogether. I
Mhm.
guess I could definitely differentiate in the description how it will be used. Um, we are in a Main Street district, and Main Street has offered us funds, which is a 50-50 match. But I would like to use, if I could, use these funds for, the bulk of the expenses for the venue space. That would be better.
Okay, so the venue space would be the one that you're currently occupying, not the space that you're renting out.
Absolutely.
Then that would be fine. However, double check on our website for the terms, because the money, while you can use this fund as a match for another grant program, the project that you're running should not have additional funding from other grant programs at this time.
Got
If
it.
that makes
Got
sense.
it. It does. Thank you.
Perfect. Awesome. We have Bryce as well. I believe here.
Hi, can you hear me?
Mhm.
Hi, so I have a few questions specifically around the S Corp because my city has delayed the business licenses and I just was able to pay for 2024. So will you need proof of that?
Yeah, if it's the city that's delaying it, as long as you have a recent up-to-date license, that should be fine.
Okay, I have the receipt that I paid for it, at least.
Yeah.
I'm just waiting for it. And then my other question on eligibility of funds. So I own a lash salon, so we spend our money a little differently. Can we use the funds for staff training, like to purchase a course to further our knowledge?
Yes, so that would be an acceptable use. You wouldn't be able to pay for the payroll for those staff members to attend the training, but
Right.
to pay for like the registration, that sort of thing. Absolutely.
Okay. And then my last question is kind of vague, but like, how can we make our applications stand out even more?
Yeah, so the best thing to do is make sure that you're really demonstrating the kind of 4 key points that we judge the application on, right? So feasibility, we want to make sure you can spend the money on time. We want to see community reach. We want to see that you're involved in your community, whether that's providing a specific service that's not available in the general area that services a particular type of customer, or it could be something that involves members of your community, volunteer time, sponsoring, getting involved with other sorts of businesses in your area. And then we also want to see demonstrated need and impact. So when you're answering those four, when you're looking at those four categories, just make sure that they're kind of emphasized in your short answer questions.
Okay, could that tie into like our whole brand identity? We partner with a domestic and sexual violence fundraiser, and we I want to donate part of our product income to these organizations just to support. So, but we also promote that with our clientele, that we want to support the women in getting their lashes done who are survivors themselves. So could that all fit in?
Yeah, so that would be a great example of community reach. You wouldn't be able to donate the grant funds themselves to it, but
Right.
if you're using it to purchase materials that are used in support of that endeavor for your business, then that would be fine.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Perfect. All right, we have Gilbert as well.
Hello?
Mhm.
I'm not Gilbert. I'm Gilbert's wife, the co-owner.
Perfect. Just going
Okay,
off your name, so.
I have a couple questions. So first of all, we are senior supper services and we take orders online and via telephone, and we rent a kitchen from the our local Elks Lodge. That is our kitchen that we use to create and make and package all the meals. Our drivers come in, pick up the meals, and deliver meals that we sell to senior citizens in our area. Is that considered our brick and mortar?
So if the kitchen space that you rent is something that is, at least for the terms of your lease, solely and only used by your particular business, we would consider that acceptable for the brick and mortar. If it's a shared kitchen space that might be rented and used by multiple businesses at one time, that would
The
not be
Elks
eligible.
not rent it to anybody but us. So we are the only ones that they rent it to. They have like little shindigs there for themselves that they'll use the kitchen to, like serve meals to their elk members or whatever, but it's not like they don't use the space the way we do.
Yeah, that would likely not be eligible. It's less so that you are currently the only ones that are using it, but it's more the potential that they could rent the space out to
If
other people, so
we
it's not just solely your space.
if we got like a letter from the Elks saying that they would not rent, that they will not rent it to anybody but us, would that help? I mean, we really want to get our own place, and we've been in business for almost 3 years now. This is like a type of community outreach. We employ seniors as well to make deliveries. It's like the perfect opportunity to for that demographic, as far as senior citizens working, because it's hard for them to find jobs, first of all. And we're employing senior citizens to do deliveries, and sometimes they'll come and fill souffle cups, we've got 3 of them already. And then basically we want to get our own brick and mortar place that belongs to us solely. But I mean, considering my husband and I are putting everything that we have personally into this, I mean, we started during the pandemic, in 2020, and it was really hard. And I mean, still to this day, my husband and I are not really even getting paid. We're putting everything that we have into this because we see so much potential, But if we got that letter from the Elks saying that they won't rent it to somebody else, would that work? I mean, I don't know.
Unfortunately, unless it's like specifically stipulated in the lease that you've had on or before January 1st, 2024, that would really be the deciding factor. If your lease with the Elks Club specifically stated that you have the sole designated use of the space, that's really where the deciding factor would be. So unfortunately, it doesn't sound like that would be eligible for the program this year.
All right, thank you so much.
Yeah, appreciate it. All right, we have time for a couple more questions, but just as a reminder, you can double check our website or email us if you have specific questions about your particular circumstance. So we'll pull in Bridget.
Great, thank you. How are you?
Good.
Awesome. I have a couple questions. One, we have a business incubator that we work out of a downtown business center. And so we have multiple businesses that we work with, each of them that's inside of the downtown business center does have their own office. Some of them you have to take the elevator up, but they actually have many of them have on the marquee their information. They have their own office space. And then there is a shared space as well, but they have their own offices. So one, I want to make sure for those businesses that we are working with that have their own office space, are they eligible to be able to make an application first?
Fortunately, they would not be eligible because they have that shared co-working space. Even though they do have their own discrete offices within it, because they're part of that shared network, we would consider
Well,
that a
they're not
co-working.
that the shared network or the shared space is a bonus that they get, and that's only offered if they pay for that, normally extra. But if they're paying to rent a specific office space, so it's a business office that has like you might have a lawyer, you might have programmer, CPA, and different things like that, but it is known for its space. We even have doctors in that space as well.
I would email us if there's a particular business that is looking to apply. They could email us and give us their specific situation. But on a broad stroke, it doesn't sound like they would be eligible because of
Okay.
that kind of co-working network style, even though it's within the business incubator and they have their own internal office space.
Well,
It's
the only business incubator space is mine, and that's I
Mhm.
guess that's the piece that I was going to ask you, because I operate the business incubator that utilizes the space for training and different things like that. So my follow-up question was for my business, but many of the businesses that I'm working with, they are not necessarily all a part of utilizing the space because of me.
Mhm. Yeah, it still sounds like on a broad look that it would probably not be eligible because it's in that kind of shared physical space. But I would recommend emailing us with your particular details and we can look into it further.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mhm. Awesome. So we have time for about two more. So we will pull Jordan. We'll pull you up.
Hello, how are you?
Good.
Good. Okay. So I was the one who asked about the winery. So it's about 10 minutes from downtown. Obviously, we're on land because we need it to grow the grapes and whatnot. They answered my question saying that it needed to be in a business district. What constitutes as a business district?
Yeah, so we would look for an area where people kind of flock to for multiple commercial purposes. Um, so in the case of something that's more like a farm or a winery or a vineyard, those would probably fall outside of that because there would not be a ton of commercial activity directly around it that people are kind of drawn to in general. It sounds like it would kind of be, they're traveling to the area just specifically to use your
Right.
business and services.
Okay. I sent an email and I added our address. Do you think that the slots are gonna fill up because they responded saying it might take 5 days to get a response. Do you think all the application slots will be filled by then?
We are very unsure.
Right.
To be honest, this is the first year we've had to put a cap because we've seen such explosive growth. So
Right.
we really aren't sure.
Okay. Because I don't
Yeah.
want to take up a application spot from someone else.
Mhm.
But I also don't really want to waste my time if I'm not eligible. So you think probably not eligible?
Probably not based on the description.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you.
Absolutely. All right, we have time for one more and we'll pull Mark here. Sorry about
Hi, here I am. Thank you. And it's funny, she just said winery because that's what I am, an urban winery though. And we are located in, in a city down from downtown, everything like that. So that kind of qualifies me, right?
Yeah, if your business is located in that kind of core commercial corridor,
Yeah.
that's really what we're looking for.
Okay. And the other question I had now on my license, my first location is my home. Then the second location, which is on my license, is my brick and mortar.
Mhm.
Now, how do I differentiate that if you see it and say, wait a minute, this is a house? You know what I mean? But this one,
Yeah, so as long as the funds are being spent to further the business that's operating out of that brick and mortar location, if that makes sense. So things like home repairs for your home office would not be
no,
qualified.
I don't need
Yeah.
anything over there, but
Mhm.
the money is needed here. That's one of the reasons I wanted to make sure that like the last young lady said, I don't want to take up somebody's space if I'm not eligible, but I am an urban whiner, so that is a little different.
Yeah, if as long as you have that brick and mortar presence in that commercial district, and that's where the grant monies would be spent, that's what we're looking for.
Oh, good. Okay, great. Thank you for taking my call, and I appreciate this session. This was wonderful. A lot of questions got answered I didn't even have to ask, so thanks so
Absolutely.
much.
Awesome. All right. Unfortunately, I do have to end the call here for everyone, but we really appreciate your time spent today. We will be sending out a recording of this session as well, so you will receive a copy of that. Might take us a couple hours to get that rendered because it is a 2-hour call with video. So give us a little bit of time. But if you have any particular questions, remember you can always check our website, mainstreet.org. You can look under the tab for how we can help. There's a specific page for the Backing Small Businesses program. You can also email us at smallbizgrant@mainstreet.org with any particular questions as well. So thank you so much, and thank you all for attending.